She gave up her table to a stranger in a packed restaurant. What he revealed changed everything for Sarah. The smell of fresh pancakes enveloped the diner, harmonizing with the clinking of silverware and boisterous chatter. Sarah's legs ached from running between tables, her mind racing through the day's orders. She glanced at her watch, 2 hours until her shift ended. Just as she thought she'd catch a moment's breath, she spotted an older man struggling to find a place to sit. His white hair and worn jacket caught her attention, a familiar pang of empathy tugging at her heart. She swallowed her discomfort and waved him over, abandoning the last remnants of her own breakfast. As they settled at her small table, she could feel the weight of his gaze. Frank, as he introduced himself, shared snippets of his life. She integrated his past as a retired professor into her whirlwind of thoughts, his backdrop against the chaos that enveloped the diner. They spoke of dreams and disappointments, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Sarah articulated her aspirations. She wondered if teaching would still be possible, even as the burdens of bills loomed large, like shadows, over her ambitions. "Life doesn't always let us choose," Frank said thoughtfully, his voice steady despite its frailty. "But it's up to us to reclaim it." His encouragement lit a flicker of hope, igniting a small spark within Sarah, warming her against her relentless doubts. But with every uplifting word, a shadow crept in. What if she dared to hope and fell short once again? A strange tightness began to form in her chest, layering her excitement with fear. Before she could delve deeper into their discussion, Frank revealed the murky waters of his past, riddled with betrayal by a once friend-turned-colleague. The story twisted her insides. It hit too close to home. Instinct drove her to question, could she trust someone tangled in such complexities? Frank's pain reverberated within her. She sensed a connection that could be more than a fleeting moment. Yet, anxiety gnawed at her. Did she want mentorship from someone whose journey was marred by loss and hurt? The diner's activity seemed to swell, amplifying her inner turmoil. Every plate served echoed her trepidation, every laugh around them cutting into her doubt. In the midst of a bustling morning, panic began to set in. She felt pulled between two lives, one fueled by survival, tethered to the needs of her daughter, and another that yearned for growth and stagnation broke into her thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just then, a sharp shout broke through her reverie, pulling her focus. A waitress stumbled, dropping a tray covered in dishes. It shattered, sending a wave of chaos through the diner. Sarah shot up from the table, instinctively rushing to help. In the frantic moments, a conversation with Frank vanished, replaced by cries and the urgent need to escape the tangled web of her thoughts. Did she even want to unearth the lingering past of a stranger who might mar her journey? Dealing with her own burdens was overwhelming. As she knelt and grabbed the pieces of broken plates, a much bigger question loomed. Was she willing to sacrifice everything she fought for, even for a flicker of hope, from someone with a troubled past? The weight of tomorrow pressed heavily on her shoulders, and she could no longer ignore the storm brewing inside. Sarah's breathing quickened as the diner erupted into a flurry of movement. Her hands moved on autopilot, gathering shards of porcelain, while her mind thrashed against the newfound urgency of her thoughts. Confronting her feelings towards Frank and her own ambitions was one thing, but the distraction of spilling dishes propelled her back into the role of caretaker, an unrelenting part of her identity. As she picked up the fragments, each jagged piece echoed her internal chaos. The plates were a reminder of the life she had crafted from her fractured dreams, held together with sheer determination. Yet, even in her commitment to her job and her daughter, a whispering doubt persisted. Could she allow herself to dream beyond this life? Was it worth the risk of further heartbreak? Need a hand? A voice broke through her haze. It was Mallory, the head waitress, already clearing up the remnants of the mess. Mallory's presence grounded Sarah momentarily, but just as quickly retreated her focus back to Frank. What would he think of this chaos? More importantly, what would he think of her? Just a few more pieces. I'll be right there, she replied, fumbling over her words, her heart thudding in the silence that followed. Each breath became heavy under the weight of her unfulfilled aspirations. She could almost hear Frank's steadiness amidst the panicking din. It's up to us to reclaim it. But how? And at what cost? With the last shard collected, she stood up, wiping her clammy hands against her apron. A few eyes flickered towards her, judgment and concern etched on their faces, but she refused to meet their gazes. Instead, she focused on the corner booth where Frank was waiting, an oasis of calm amidst the storm. Gathering her resolve, Sarah approached him. I'm sorry about that, things got a little hectic. She noticed the softness of his eyes, and for the first time, she recognized not just a stranger, but a person who could possibly understand her struggles. No need for apologies, Frank smiled, the warmth radiating from him creating a momentary shield against her anxieties. I admire your spirit, she echoed, incredulous. This is just survival. I'm not doing anything extraordinary. Survival is extraordinary in itself, he countered, an earnestness shining through his age-weathered features. But it's the choices we make within that struggle that define who we truly are. His words sunk into her mind, sinking like stones into a pond. Sarah had carried the narrative of her life as one of perpetual struggle, but his perspective shifted something dormant within her. What if she began to view her challenges, not just as obstacles but as opportunities for discovery? Moments earlier she had clung to her fears, but now a sliver of determination crept in, binding itself to the edges of her heart. Do you really believe that? She asked, her voice steadying as hope cautiously dared to surface. Absolutely, he said, a glint of conviction lighting his eyes. Think of it this way. The recent chaos, the broken plates, those are experiences, teaching moments. What have you learned from this? As she pondered his question, an inkling of clarity began nudging at the corners of her consciousness. Could she transform her trials into a source of strength? Could the fear of confronting her dreams be outweighed by the possibility of pursuing them? While the day continued to ebb away around them, something shifted within her, a realization that grappling with her past and her fears wasn't a burden, but rather a profound opportunity for growth. But just as her thoughts began to crystallize, a familiar face from her past wove through the diner, pulling her back into a reality she thought she had escaped. The sight of her old colleague set off a complex vortex of feelings in her chest. Confrontation or avoidance. The time had arrived to decide which path to take next. The diner buzzed with the hum of conversations and the clatter of utensils, but for Sarah, all else faded into a dull roar as her colleague approached. It was Lisa, once an ally, but now a haunting reminder of aspirations Sarah had shelved long ago. The emotional weight of their shared history loomed over her, sharpened by the memories of dreams that had slipped through her fingers. Lisa's expression flickered from surprise to cautious delight as she closed the distance between them. Sarah, I heard you were back in town, she said, her voice bright with a forced cheer. It's been ages. Yeah, just passing through, Sarah mumbled, her heart racing. Each tick in their conversation felt heavy, a competition between the woman she had been and the one she aspired to become. The part of her that had avoided this moment screamed for retreat, but the spark of self-awareness ignited by Frank's words urged her to stay present. I thought you were chasing after that big promotion in Chicago. Lisa pressed, her eyes narrowing slightly as if testing the waters of Sarah's resolve. The question was a piercing reminder of the path Sarah had abandoned, and for a fleeting moment, she considered retreating into the shadows of uncertainty. But with the faint echoes of Frank's encouragement, she steeled herself. I decided it was time to focus on other things. My daughter needs me here. Really, that's brave, Lisa responded, though Sarah could detect the skepticism woven through her compliment. But what about your dreams? This was it. The heart of the matter laid bare for scrutiny. Sarah's breath quickened as the words hung in the air, a challenge and a lifeline all at once. Was she brave for stepping back, or was she simply afraid to leap? Yeah, what about them? She found herself asking, her tone sharp with defensiveness but also laced with a tremor of excitement. What if my dream changes? What if it means redefining who I am boldly and unapologetically? Lisa's smile faltered, and for a moment, Sarah caught a glimpse of something profound in her colleague's eyes. Recognition. Sarah was wrestling not just with her dreams, but with the haunting specter of self-doubt, the impulse to pretend success was achieved rather than acknowledged as a process. A silence settled between them, thick with unsaid words. The din around them faded further as Sarah found the strength to lean into her vulnerabilities. You know, I always envied the way you went for what you wanted. I thought if I didn't take the traditional path, I was giving up. Lisa's stance shifted. I've struggled too, you know. I just learned to point my struggle in a direction where it felt meaningful. Maybe it's not too late for you. Was that encouragement surfacing from a place of rivalry, or was it genuine? Sarah's chest tightened with the revelation that self-compassion could unfurl from confronting old connections. With each passing second, she felt layers of her past peel away, revealing glimmers of the woman she could become. So, what's your next move? Lisa asked, her tone suddenly earnest. The question weighed heavily. I want to reclaim my narrative, but I've never fully taken the step. The confession hung, a half-formed thought, waiting to be actualized. As Lisa shifted away to rejoin the fray of the bustling diner, Sarah's heart raced with newfound resolve. She could allow herself to redefine what success meant, fighting through her fears instead of allowing them to dictate her. In the chaos of those moments, she saw herself reflected in the shimmer of the diner's glass, someone capable of so much more, if only she dared to claim it. Gathering her breath, Sarah turned her gaze to the booth where Frank sat, oblivious to the storm swirling within her. A decision loomed on the horizon: confront the woman she used to be or embrace the chance to level up. With renewed purpose, she took deliberate steps towards Frank, her mind racing with the realization that behind every dream lies the possibility of risk. She had spent years avoiding this moment of confrontation, but she could no longer afford to turn away. As she drew nearer, ready to share the flickering potential she felt sparking inside her, she realized that sometimes, facing an old chapter head-on could illuminate a path she never thought was possible. And yet, just as she reached the table, the door swung open, and the unmistakable sound of a familiar laugh filtered through, stopping her dead in her tracks. She knew that laugh all too well. The past was about to catch up with her rapidly. Would she stay the course, or turn away once more? Tension vibrated in the air, as Sarah barely managed to tear her gaze away from the entrance. That laugh, effortless and bright, was none other than Nathan's. The last time she'd seen him, they were celebrating countless accomplishments together. Nathan, her college friend, the one who had always embraced challenges fearlessly, seemed like a distant echo of what Sarah wished she could embody. Her heart thudded in her chest, caught between the weight of nostalgia and the fierceness of her newly kindled resolve. Facing him now felt like a standing challenge, reminiscent of the dreams she once chased, but left behind. Internal urgency surged. This was her moment to confront, not just him, but the very parts of her that she viewed as unfinished or forsaken. The familiarity of his presence stirred long-buried feelings of ambition and regret, and she had to decide quickly: would she engage, or let the moment slip through her fingers? With a deep breath, she turned the corner, smoothing the fabric of her blouse, speaking silent affirmations to herself with each step. Nathan hadn't spotted her yet. She could either blend into the background or step boldly into the fray. It wasn't bravery in the absence of fear, but rather the choice to act despite it that colored her decision. "Hey Nathan," she called out, summoning a voice she barely recognized as her own. He spun around, and for a moment, surprise lit up his features. "Sarah. Wow, it's been forever." His enthusiasm was genuine, which nudged the corners of her mouth into a smile, but shadows of doubt crept in again. What had she achieved since their last meeting? For every fleeting moment of confidence she'd recently felt, comparisons to Nathan clawed at her. He was on a fast track to a successful career. She was still grappling with her choices, yet an unfamiliar energy coursed through her as she settled into conversation, preparing to bridge the gaps that spanned their lives. "Yeah, just back for a bit. How's the project at the agency going?" she inquired, encouraging him to share while simultaneously pushing her own nervousness aside. It felt crucial to turn this into a dialogue, reminding herself if she was to reclaim her narrative. It required not just facing her history, but forging connections anew. Nathan animatedly described his work, his passion contagious and invigorating. As he spoke, Sarah allowed herself to envision what life would have looked like if she had stayed on her original trajectory. The clarity of his aspirations contrasted sharply with the scattered visions she was trying to assemble for her own future. "Were you ever going to do something adventurous? You know, like travel, or take that job offer in New York?" he asked, tilting his head in curiosity. His question pierced through the haze of small talk, igniting the unasked questions within her own mind. "You could say I've been on a different adventure, figuring out motherhood and reset my path," she responded, careful to keep her tone steady, but it couldn't mask the twinge of vulnerability laced in her voice. "Sounds noble," he nodded thoughtfully, but a shadow of doubt crossed his features. "But also limiting, don't you think?" Her heart sank slightly at his unfiltered honesty. It was as if he could see past the mask she wore, recognizing the messy complexity in her choices. Was her focus on her daughter a limitation, or was it a redefinition? He was right in some respects. Every choice had brought her here, but that didn't make it any easier to face. "That's just it, Nathan. I'm learning to carve a new kind of success," she countered, feeling the tension in her chest as she grasped for assertiveness. Perhaps reclaiming her narrative also involved challenging expectations, even her own. "I get that," he mused, "but you shouldn't lose sight of what you want. Life is happening now. It's okay to want more." Those words lingered like a mantra, clashing sharply with the doubts that had long echoed in her psyche. "Do you really think it's possible to have both?" she asked, unsure and yet enriching in her uncertainty. "Absolutely. You just need to make that leap," he replied, and for a moment, that thought imbued her with the killer instinct she had long since stifled. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the door swung open again, and a flurry of movement swept the diner. She turned her head instinctively and nearly gasped. A figure stepping inside was unmistakably Andrew, her former boss. He looked right at her, recognition dawning in his eyes. Her heart plummeted. What would he say after all this time? Would he drag her past back into the fray, when she was finally glimpsing a way forward? The momentum of the moment shifted. Would this be an opportunity to stand firm, or yet another pitfall dragging her back? Chills raced down her spine as she calculated her next move, teetering on the precipice of defining her future with a single choice. Sarah felt the warmth of the diner evaporate as Andrew's eyes locked onto hers. The whirlwind of thoughts surged in her mind, memories of missed deadlines, frantic meetings, and her stubborn adherence to the corporate grind tore through her like storm clouds on an otherwise bright day. Could she really stand her ground in the face of someone who once made her feel so small? Andrew walked toward her, casually flipping his coattail back as he approached. "Sarah, it's been a while. How have you been?" His smile appeared genuine, yet she couldn't help but register an underlying intensity in his gaze. The air between them thickened with the weight of unspoken exchanges, filled with the history of her decision to step away. "Busy," she managed, unable to keep the irritation at bay. It felt insufficient, yet it was the truth. As the words left her lips, she noticed Nathan watching their interaction, and the heat of embarrassment flushed her face. Would he see her as the woman who'd shied away from her career, or the one trying to reclaim herself? "You're busy?" Andrew raised an eyebrow, leaning slightly closer. "I figured you'd be further along professionally by now. You always had such potential." The insinuation hung in the air, wrapping around her like a vine, squeezing tightly. "I'm exploring different avenues," she replied, choosing to wrestle the narrative away. She hadn't come this far to let her past determine her future. "Exploring, huh? That's one way to put it." Andrew's tone shifted, laced with a condescending undercurrent that irritated her further. "You know, we could use someone with your eye for detail and creativity at the firm. There's always room for talent like yours." It struck her a mixture of temptation and frustration. Could she really dive back into that world, picking up where she left off? She fought to suppress the longing. Her creativity had a voice, now a voice she'd been nurturing, while managing the demands of motherhood. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm working on something that fits my life better right now," she said, steeling her resolve. The moment felt pivotal, and she could sense the weight of Nathan's gaze poised on her, measuring the direction she was taking. Andrew chuckled lightly, as if sharing an inside joke. "Balancing your roles is admirable. Just don't forget to keep that foot in the door." The comment irked her, yet it nudged her toward clarity. Did she want to drift through life, or did she wish to set the course? Somewhere beneath her surface, an inkling of her former self stirred the ambition that Nathan recognized, the indomitable spirit that Andrew underestimated. "Nobody wants to stay in one place forever," Sarah replied, her voice steady as she chose her words. "I've realized that success doesn't have to look the same for everyone." She dared to let her gaze shoot back to Nathan, seeking some sign of validation. A spark of understanding passed between them, a moment where their past ambitions collided with calls for new beginnings. "So, you're redefining success?" Andrew smirked, dismissive. "Just make sure you're not losing your edge in the process." "Who says I can't have both?" she asserted, the fire in her belly pulsating, shedding the wariness of insecurity. What if this was her moment, not just to reclaim a dialogue with the past, but also to establish her future? The thought exhilarated her. Andrew leaned back, momentarily taken aback. His expression flattened, no longer amused, and Sarah realized she'd crossed a line. A slight smile crept onto Nathan's face, an encouraging glimmer she couldn't ignore. "Well, this has been illuminating," Andrew said finally, a slight edge of irritation cutting through his practiced politeness. "But I should catch up with some colleagues." He glanced pointedly at Nathan before giving a curt nod and turning to leave. As Andrew walked away, relief washed over her, but beneath that relief was the buzzing reality that this confrontation had opened something new within her. She had refused to be belittled, choosing instead to embrace the tangled complexity of her choices and desires. "Wow, that was something," Nathan interjected, admiration clear on his face. "You really stood your ground." "Maybe I'm just tired of being defined by others," she admitted, turning back to the table with renewed determination sparking in her chest. "It's time to create my own definition of success, even if it looks different." "Exactly," Nathan nodded. "But you know, answering that question might require some real risks." He leaned in closer, as if sharing a secret. "What's your next leap going to be?" Caught in the thrill of newfound motivation, Sarah's mind raced. A leap? What would that look like for her? Could she frame her aspirations and forge a path? The moment felt intoxicating. She could taste the possibilities, yet nestled within them lurked uncertainties, decisions that would test her resolve. Just as she considered her next step in this unfamiliar terrain of ambition, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced down to see a text from an old mentor. The message flashed across the screen. "Want to grab coffee? I've got something important to discuss." Her heart raced. Would this message be the spark she desperately sought, or another instance of doubt threatening to halt her momentum? The decision loomed, reflecting not only her past, but also the potential future she could seize. Mustering her strength, she shot a glance at Nathan. The moment had arrived to define her own journey. Would she answer the call, or let the opportunity slip away once more? Standing at the cusp of a decision, one that could potentially reshape her trajectory, Sarah's heart thumped loudly in her ears. She hesitated for a brief moment, uncertainty mingling with anticipation. Nathan's expression was encouraging, yet she felt the gravity of her choice. Could she really dive back into the world of ambition, the one she had meticulously constructed her life to escape? "I should probably go," she said, more to convince herself than Nathan. The thought of her mentor, a beacon during her formative years, beckoned her with the promise of insight, and perhaps a rekindling of her drive. "You should." Nathan's affirmation was clear, his eyes shining with hope for her. "Every leap comes with risk. But consider this: what if this is the opportunity you've been waiting for?" Sarah bit her lower lip, an involuntary gesture of hesitation. Her stomach twisted at the thought of facing the potential disappointment, echoes of past failures bubbling up to the surface. What if this mentor had moved on, seeing her as nothing more than a relic of what she used to be? "Fine, I will go," she finally declared, her voice firm, yet laced with hesitation. There was an unfamiliar resolve lurking within her, one that ignited when facing Andrew, and it sparked again now. Maybe this would be her moment of truth, a pivotal step toward an uncharted version of success. As she walked out of the diner, the chill of the afternoon air met her, sharp and invigorating. Each step felt more defined, shaking off remnants of self-doubt with every move. With Nathan's encouragement still lingering in her mind, Sarah navigated the streets toward the coffee shop. Her thoughts wrestled between trepidation and excitement, imagining the conversation ahead. Upon entering the quaint coffee shop, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around her, making her momentarily forget the apprehension that accompanied this meeting. She spotted her mentor, Julia, poised at a corner table with a steaming mug in hand. There was something about Julia's composed presence that always calmed her frenetic thoughts. "Sarah." Julia's warm smile washed over her like sunlight. "I'm so glad you came." The familiarity eased the tightness in Sarah's chest. "Thanks for inviting me," she replied, settling into the chair opposite her. Julia studied her for a moment, the gentle scrutiny digging into parts of Sarah she had kept guarded. "You look great, different, stronger." Even the comment ignited a flicker of pride within Sarah. "I'm trying to redefine things, my choices, and what success means to me." "I admire that," Julia encouraged, leaning forward, her voice lowering with intent. "It's not easy to course correct after being swept up in the noise of expectations, especially in our industry. But tell me, what truly motivates you now?" The complexity of Sarah's aspirations began to unravel before her. "I don't want to be defined by what others think of me anymore, especially not by Andrew, or anyone else for that matter. I'm trying to regain control, find a path that resonates with who I am today." Julia smiled knowingly. "That's a powerful revelation. What have you considered doing next?" Caught off guard by the question, Sarah paused, allowing the momentum of her earlier confrontation with Andrew to propel her thoughts. "I want to be creative again. I've been exploring ideas, but they feel scattered and uncertain. I need to focus." Julia nodded thoughtfully. "The first step is clarity. But remember, clarity comes from action. What can you actively pursue to align with your vision?" It was an exhilarating challenge. "Maybe I could start a blog that intertwines my experiences: parenthood, professional life. I want to create a dialogue about redefining success in ways that resonate with other women." "Yes, that is an extraordinary idea. Your voice is powerful, and it could inspire so many," Julia exclaimed, eyes bright with enthusiasm. Sarah felt her vision crystallizing. Could she transform the doubts that once stifled her into a platform for connection and empowerment? The prospect invigorated her, shifting the conversation from mere ambition to the actualization of her ideas. "Let's flesh that out," Julia proposed, pulling out a notebook. "Aim for tangible plans. What needs to happen to launch this vision?" As they dove deeper into ideas, Sarah felt an exhilarating surge, an affirmation of her capabilities and aspirations. Moments passed, and with each proposal, her excitement swelled. This was more than just brainstorming. It felt like a reclamation of the narrative she was eager to write. But just as she began to draft her first real steps, Julia's phone buzzed, disrupting the momentum. "Oh, excuse me," Julia said, glancing at her screen. "I need to take this business emergency. Can you hold on for a few minutes?" "Of course," Sarah responded, trying not to let the interruption dampen her newfound zeal. While Julia stepped away, a wave of doubt washed over her. Was she really ready to commit to a bold step? Could she genuinely write her own narrative, or would fear creep back and unstoppable, like a tide? As Sarah twirled a pen in her fingers, an unknown number flashed on her phone's screen. Hesitantly, she answered, "Hello, Sarah, it's Andrew. We need to speak." Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath her. What could he possibly want now? The uncertainty loomed, igniting equal parts of dread and anticipation. She inhaled deeply, sensing that this encounter could be critical. What would this conversation reveal, and would it forge a new path, or sever the one she was determined to create? Her stomach tightened at the sound of Andrew's voice, each word a thread pulling her back into a world she'd fought hard to escape. "What do you want, Andrew?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The barista poured a latte in the background, a comforting presence, yet it felt like a distant echo to her reality. "We need to talk about the project," he replied, the coolness of his tone illuminating the distance that seemed to grow between them, despite the physical proximity. "The project? What's left to discuss?" she retorted, bracing herself against the table. This was not the conversation she had envisioned today, one where her ideas blossomed into reality, not a rehash of prior grievances. "I think we both know this could benefit us both. Let's not act like we haven't already crossed so many bridges," he insisted, his voice edging on impatience. Crossed bridges, indeed. Her mind raced with images of the chaotic journey they had previously embarked on together. A project weighed down by his demands, and her expectations a heavy burden she had cast aside. "I'm not interested in revisiting that chapter of my life, Andrew. I'm moving forward," she asserted, her steadiness counteracting the trembling tension within. "Forward? Is that really what you think you're doing?" His laugh was hollow. "You're just whimsical. This blog, as you call it. No one cares about a casual blog. Don't you dare minimize my choices." She shot back, fire igniting within her. "I won't be defined by what you believe I should be doing." The silence on the end of the line seemed to stretch, reverberating in her mind as she considered her stance. Would she really push him away, once and for all? "You may be moving on, but it's still my industry. What if I told you I could help elevate that blog into something significant?" he offered after a moment. "I could connect you with people who matter, give you exposure." Her instincts flared up at the offer. She was familiar with Andrew's methods. This was not a gesture of goodwill, but a maneuver to reel her back into dependency on his influence. And yet, the lurking temptation of partnership wrapped itself around her thoughts like ivy closing in. "I won't play your game, Andrew. My journey is mine now, and I need to forge my own path. Not one paved by expectations or delusions of grandeur," she declared, the words hitting a satisfying cadence in her heart. "Think about it," he pressed on, undeterred. "We could turn it into something powerful together. I know how this works. I can guide you." In that moment, standing at the precarious edge of uncertainty loomed, she could hear Julia's encouraging voice echoing in her head, resonating with her newfound resolve. She was not the same woman who had once collaborated with Andrew, lost in the haze of his shadow. She could feel her worth amplifying, reflecting the work that lay ahead. "I'll think about it," she finally replied, aware that offering a possible avenue of inquiry didn't mean she had to follow through. Maybe this was her moment to confront her fears in ways she hadn't imagined. After hanging up, a wave of clarity washed over Sarah, cleansing the anxiety that had gripped her during the conversation. She looked at Julia, who was returning to the table, phone in pocket, an expression wary yet warm. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," Sarah replied, smiling as she pulled her notebook closer. "Let's talk about those actionable steps. I'm ready to take control now. No looking back." Their conversation shifted back to the ideas they had been crafting, transforming from self-doubt to building blocks of something real and forthcoming. Laughter threaded through their dialogue, ideas gaining notable shape and clarity. As they continued discussing titles, themes, and audience engagement, Sarah felt an exhilarating connection to her vision she could own without Andrew's hold. She jotted down notes, the words spilling on the page, each sentence permitting herself to dream bigger. But in the exhilaration of creation, doubt flickered at the fringes once more. Andrew's words loomed large in her mind. Could he really disrupt her newfound momentum? Lost in her thoughts, she nearly missed Julia's inquiry. "What's on your mind?" "Just considering the fragility of this moment. One misstep." Sarah's voice trailed off, contemplating the precarious balance between ambition and doubt. "Embrace it," Julia encouraged. "You're in charge now. This is your story." Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed. Another unknown caller, her heart instantly quickening. Another invitation into her past. Or an opportunity for growth. Taking a deep breath, she answered. "Hello." This time, a soft voice replied. "Sarah, I have an opportunity for you that could change everything." What could this opportunity offer, and would it derail the path she began to carve? As her heart raced, the weight of her choices pressed heavily against her resolve. Sarah inhaled sharply, the voice on the line lingering like a specter from the past. "Who is this?" she blurted, instinctively leaning back, scanning her surroundings as if the person might appear before her. "It's Mia. You remember me from the conference a few months ago." The name ignited a flicker of memory, an engaging woman with an infectious enthusiasm for digital storytelling, who had seemed genuinely invested in Sarah's potential. "Mia, yes," Sarah said, her tone shifting from guarded to curious. "What's this opportunity? I've seen your blog, and I think you have something special, something that can resonate with a bigger audience. I'm starting a platform that connects writers to brands, and I'd love to feature your work. Would you be interested?" Her stomach twisted with a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had yearned for, yet the specter of Andrew's words echoed in her mind. "What's the catch?" she asked, testing the waters. "No catch," Mia reassured her. "Just a collaboration to uplift talented voices. I believe in authenticity, and your writing embodies that. Let's meet up and discuss how we can work together." As Sarah mulled over her response, she could hear Julia's voice in the back of her mind. "This is your moment, Sarah. Don't hesitate. Okay, let's meet," she found herself saying. After hanging up, a rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins. This could be the pivot point in her journey, an entry into the professional realm she had always dreamed of. Yet, the threads of doubt and Andrew's lingering influence brushed at the back of her thoughts. "You look like you've just won a race," Julia remarked, observing Sarah's vigor. "I might have," Sarah replied, brimming with newfound optimism. With each word shared between them, a powerful realization set in. This was not mere chance. The trial with Andrew had fortified her spirit, and now she was prepared to seize opportunities on her terms. The next few days were a whirlwind. She immersed herself in her blog, revisiting entries with an editor's eye, learning how to polish her voice further. She attended online workshops that focused on storytelling and digital marketing, harnessing techniques that could elevate her presence. But even as she flourished, Andrew's voice crept into her mind like an unwelcome guest. The night before her meeting with Mia, Sarah found herself tossing and turning, questioning every decision she had made in recent weeks. Wasn't she just falling back into the cycle of seeking approval? Was she still clinging to the same dependency she'd fought so hard to shed? How could she forge her path decisively when shadows of doubt lingered? The morning arrived, and with it, an overwhelming blend of excitement and anxiety. Dressed for success, she approached the cafe where she would meet Mia, with every step feeling heavier than the last. This was a pivotal moment, the kind that defined trajectories. Once seated, Mia radiated warmth, her enthusiasm palpable as they began to discuss ideas and mutual aspirations. But as the discussion deepened, Sarah felt conflict swell within her. What if Mia was merely another conduit to another dominating presence, and she was unwittingly offering herself as a pawn again? No one cares about a casual blog, the words echoed like drumming thunder. Decisions felt precarious, personal values were put to the test. Time slipped away in discussion, but every stimulating idea was tainted with the question of control. Would this collaboration catalyze her growth, or transform her into another artist lost in someone else's narrative? "It's your voice we want to amplify," Mia mentioned, a notice of sincerity illuminating her intentions. With determination boiling within, Sarah spoke up. "I appreciate what you're offering, but I need to ensure it's going to help me evolve on my path, not hinder it. I need to know I can maintain my voice." Mia met her gaze with unwavering trust. "That's exactly what I hope to achieve. You will always be the architect of your journey." As they continued to hash out details, Sarah felt solid ground beneath her feet once more. The nagging doubts began dissipating, replaced by rallying belief in her instincts. Yet, as they wrapped up, a message pinged on her phone, a notification from Andrew. "Just checking in to see how that blog is going. Don't forget who helped you get where you are." An oppressive weight fell upon her chest, and the shards of previous entanglements pressed into view once more. The moment of truth had arrived. Would she allow Andrew's shadow to loom over her newfound possibilities, or would she declare her independence once and for all? Taking a deep breath, she looked at Mia, realizing this was her decision to make. What would she choose, and how would it define her journey moving forward? Sarah's heart raced, tension coiling in her chest as she steeled herself against the weight of Andrew's words. The allure of opportunity shone brilliantly before her, yet his anxiety-inducing presence threatened to darken it with doubt. Each moment stretched as she contemplated the implications of her next move. A crossroad laid bare before her. "Are you okay?" Mia noticed the shift in Sarah's demeanor, her tone laced with genuine concern. "I'm fine," Sarah replied, but her voice was softer than she intended. Even as she spoke, the desire to reclaim her narrative wrestled against the remnants of dependence she fought so hard to overcome. Would it ever be possible to separate herself from Andrew's influence? Mia's suggestion to collaborate was liberating, yet it carried echoes of previous afflictions. With a focused determination, Sarah clarified what she needed from this relationship. She could be strong, assertive, a leader of her own journey. "I want to amplify my voice, but I also need to guard it fiercely. It's important to me that this collaboration reflects my vision, not someone else's." Mia responded with a nod, appreciation glimmering in her eyes. "I understand. Let's brainstorm some ideas that feel authentic to you. I want this to be a true partnership." As they exchanged thoughts, Sarah felt her focus sharpen. Each idea shaped her direction clear, distinct markers guiding her towards a more profound understanding of herself as a writer. Their conversation became an exchange of empowerment, a resonance of shared values, pushing Sarah to articulate her desires with newfound clarity. The darker echoes of Andrew's words receded, burned away by her conviction. Over the next few weeks, a framework for their collaboration began to take shape. Sarah poured her energy into her writing, emboldened by the sense of purpose that Mia had ignited within her. She crafted proposals, pitched concepts, and participated in brainstorming sessions that revealed her innate ability to understand market demands, without compromising her authentic voice. With each success, she felt a layer of former insecurities shed. Yet, as Sarah relished her burgeoning independence, moments of backlash threatened to undermine her progress. Andrew returned with calculated messages, cloaked in faux concern and criticism. "You've always been a good writer, but remember the support I provided. Being bold could be risky." Each correspondence was a mini assault on her confidence. Frustration welled within her, creating a potent concoction of defiance and rage. How could she break free when his words lingered like a haunting refrain? The immediate urge to respond dissipated into a ritual of deep breathing and reflection instead. With a void growing between their paths, she recognized a significant shift. She could choose her reactions, or lack thereof. Stepping into the spotlight of her new platform, Sarah found herself inadvertently collecting testimonies from other stories of overcoming doubt, of finding personal conviction in creative journeys. She felt a flush of recognition. These experiences mirrored her struggles with Andrew. They invigorated her blog, feeding the authenticity Mia championed. In a new entry titled Finding My Voice, Sarah unpacked her battles with self-doubt and external validation. Writing these words felt liberating, a catharsis transforming her writing into reflective metamorphosis. As she clicked publish, a thrilling surge coursed through her veins. She was no longer shackled by fear. She was harnessing it for transformation, turning her past into a beacon for others facing similar battles. But with each moment of growth, a question gnawed deeper. How would Andrew react to her unfolding independence? His haunting messages loomed, his words still capable of triggering insecurities. As feedback on her blog flowed in, contrasting sentiments filled her inbox of admiration from emerging voices and bitterness from old ties. She could sense a storm brewing, implying confrontation wasn't far off. This was a realm she had yet to navigate. Sarah's resolve solidified as she drew lines between confidence and arrogance, independence and isolation. She pondered her next move. Would she confront Andrew directly, or allow her evolving narrative to speak for itself? Sarah grabbed her laptop, fingers hovering above the keys, heart pounding with the implications of venturing into uncharted territory. Would the next step herald a newfound freedom, or would it cast shadows of old ties? As she considered how to shape her response to Andrew, uncertainty loomed, thickening the air. With a fierce determination tightening her resolve, she began to type. Each word flowed like a brushstroke on canvas, each keystroke a declaration of her newfound identity. Sarah didn't just want to reply to Andrew. She wanted to fortify the walls of her awakening. Dear Andrew, she typed, I appreciate your concern, but this is my journey now. I am ready to take control of my narrative and define success on my own terms. The air crackled around her as she continued. I am grateful for your past guidance, but I need to move forward without the shadows of your influence looming large. Her heart raced, but the steady pulse of determination kept her grounded. This was liberation. This was her reclamation. With a firm click, she hit send. Relief surged through her as she leaned back in her chair, exhaling the residual tension that had gripped her for years. She invited uncertainty but refused to be tethered to fear or external validation. Weeks turned into a whirlwind of creative expression, and Sarah's blog posts began gaining traction. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Readers resonated with her journey of rediscovery, awakening at the intersection of passion and purpose. Women shared their testimonials, each one fueling Sarah's resolve to bring her experiences to the forefront of conversations on creativity and motherhood. It was exhilarating to witness the evolution of her narrative unfold. Her confidence swelled, a poignant reminder that vulnerability can be a source of strength, not a mark of weakness. She showcased her writing in workshops and panels, inspiring others to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery. Each applause received felt like a collective affirmation of her choices, and she embraced the accolades with humility, knowing none would have been possible without confronting the shadows of her past. But amid her triumphs, a confrontation with Andrew loomed. He sought a meeting to discuss the unforeseen impact of her blog, a request that felt heavy with implications. She felt a now familiar tightness in her chest, a rusty recollection of the tensions that had once engulfed her. Yet, there was no fear this time, only readiness. As she stepped into the cafe for their meeting, her posture was confident, her attitude unyielding. Andrew waited, a familiar blend of regret and doubt lacing his features. "Sarah, it's good to see you," he began, but there was an undercurrent of something more. "Let's get straight to it," she interjected, steering the conversation with clarity. "I've embraced my journey, and I know where I'm headed. The power of vulnerability has shaped my narrative, and I no longer need your validation or approval." A moment of silence pooled between them, Andrew visibly caught off guard. "What do you mean?" he asked, perhaps expecting a softer approach. "Your influence is not my path anymore," she clarified. "I've seen the possibility of redefining success to resonate with my truth. Your doubts and criticisms only fueled my fire to succeed on my own terms." Andrew's expression softened momentarily, perhaps regretful. "I never meant to hold you back, Sarah. But you did. I let you," she stated firmly, reclaiming her power. "I'm moving forward not in resentment but with gratitude for the lessons I've learned. But we must do so on distinct paths." With that, she felt a wave of closure envelop her. She refused to negotiate her boundaries, and seeing Andrew's acknowledgement was validation in itself. As she left, her heart soared. She had dismantled the walls of uncertainty, siding with the knowledge that clarity comes from within. In the following months, Sarah continued to flourish. She delved deeper into her blog, crafting a community where women shared stories of overcoming obstacles together. They transformed doubt into resilience. She began to develop workshops and experiences that embraced creative growth, all rooted in authentic connection. One afternoon, as she taught a workshop on finding one's unique voice, she saw the audience's faces lit with resonance. She cultivated a space of encouragement and empowerment, something she once craved but never found in her previous career. That day, it struck her with pure clarity. She had taken the chaotic fragments of her past, the broken plates of her life, and turned them into a mosaic of purpose. Then, as she observed the glee erupting from the participants' shared experiences, a sense of profound fulfillment enveloped her. It wasn't merely about the success she built, it was about the authenticity lived alongside it, about creating a narrative that inspired others to do the same. In that moment, she recognized that Saraz, she envisioned this new self, had achieved more than an escape from her past. She had accomplished a fully articulated transformation of her journey. She had soared high above the weight of doubt, generosity now redefining the essence of ambition. And so, standing on that stage amidst these women, Sarah realized her strength lay not just in pursuing her dreams but in allowing herself to inspire a collective reawakening of aspirations. That, quite simply, was her greatest triumph of all. Now, as the audience erupted in applause, Sarah held that moment close. She had achieved what she once believed was unattainably, journey of realism intertwined with empowered self-acceptance. Now, it's your turn to embark on your journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.